Commander Jake Morrison walked slowly across the bridge of the UHS Defiance. His boots made soft sounds on the metal floor as he looked out at the stars through the big window. The year was 2387, and humans had been part of the Galactic Federation for almost 200 years now. But even after all this time, most aliens still thought humans were strange and dangerous. The other races in the galaxy called Earth a death world. They said humans were too violent and too crazy to be trusted with important jobs. Most alien ships were built light and fast because their home planets were safe and peaceful. Human ships were built thick and strong because Earth was full of storms, earthquakes, and wild animals that could kill you. Jake had been in space for 15 years. He was 38 years old and had short brown hair that was starting to turn gray. His crew respected him because he always kept them safe, but he also got the job done no matter how hard it was. The Federation gave humans the boring jobs, like exploring empty space and checking on small colonies. They never gave humans the important missions. Lieutenant Commander Lisa Hart stood at the weapons station. She was Jake's second in command and one of the best tactical officers in the human fleet. Lisa had long red hair and green eyes, and she could figure out battle plans faster than most computers. She grew up on Mars, where life was tough and you had to be smart to survive. Another quiet day in the middle of nowhere, Lisa said as she checked her screens. We have been scanning empty space for 3 weeks now. I'm getting tired of looking at nothing but rocks and gas clouds. Chief Engineer Tony Rodriguez was working at his station near the back of the bridge. Tony was a short man with dark hair and quick hands that could fix anything. He came from the asteroid mining colonies where machines broke down all the time and you had to repair them fast or die. Tony could make their ship run even when half the systems were broken. At least, the engines are running smooth, Tony said without looking up from his work. These new quantum drives are much better than the old ones. We can jump twice as far and use half the fuel. Dr. Amanda Foster sat at the science station studying data from their sensors. Amanda was tall and thin with blonde hair and blue eyes. She was both the ship's doctor and their expert on alien life forms. Amanda had studied at the best schools on Earth and knew more about alien biology than most aliens knew about themselves. The bridge was quiet, except for the soft hum of machines and the gentle beeping of computers. The Defiance was exploring the edge of Federation space, looking for new planets and checking for any threats. It was not exciting work, but someone had to do it. The Federation always sent humans to do the dangerous jobs that other species did not want. Jake was reading reports when the communication system started making loud warning sounds. Betty White, their communications officer, quickly started pressing buttons on her console. Betty was young, only 25, but she was the best at her job. She could speak 12 different alien languages and could fix broken radio signals that other people could not even hear. Commander, I am getting something strange, Betty said. Her voice sounded worried. It is a distress signal, but it is very weak and broken up. The signal is coming from way outside our normal patrol area. Jake walked over to Betty's station. Can you clean up the signal? Betty worked at her controls for a few minutes. Static filled the bridge speakers mixed with strange sounds and voices speaking in different alien languages. Slowly, the words became clear enough to understand. Massive predator outbreak. Colonies under attack. Federation forces retreating. Need help now. Many people dying. Coordinates follow. The bridge became very quiet. Everyone stopped what they were doing and listened to the desperate voice coming through the speakers. The signal was weak and kept cutting out, but they could hear the fear and panic in the alien's voice. Where's this coming from? Jake asked. Betty checked her readings. The Zephyr system, sir. That is about 6 hours away if we jump there directly. The system has 4 planets with Althrani colonies on them. Amanda looked up from her station. The Althrani are peaceful people. They grow food for half the galaxy, but they do not have any weapons or soldiers. If something is attacking them, they cannot fight back. Jake tried to contact Federation Command to report the distress signal and ask for orders. But when he tried to reach the main communication center, all he got was busy signals and automatic messages saying to wait. He tried calling different Federation offices, but nobody was answering their calls. Finally, after an hour of trying, Jake got through to a Federation officer. The alien on the screen looked like a big blue bird with 4 arms. This was Commander Zix from the Federation Emergency Response Center. "Commander Morrison, we are aware of the situation in the Zephyr system," Zix said in a bored voice. "The matter is being discussed by the proper committees. You are ordered to continue your current patrol mission." "Sir, people are dying right now," Jake said. "We are the closest ship to help them. We could be there in 6 hours." "The Vorthak Military Council says the situation cannot be saved," Zix replied. "The Nexari Science Committee wants more data before taking action. The Economic Council is worried about the cost of a rescue mission. These things take time to decide properly." Jake felt anger building inside him. "How much time do the Elthrani have?" "The committees will meet again tomorrow to discuss options," Zix said. Then the alien ended the call. Lisa walked over to Jake. "Commander, that signal is getting weaker. If we are going to help them, we need to leave soon." Jake looked around at his crew. These people had served with him for 3 years. They had survived asteroid storms, equipment failures, and attacks by space pirates. They were tough and loyal, and they always did what was right even when it was dangerous. Tony looked up from his station. "Sir, the ship is ready to jump whenever you give the order. The engines are running perfect and we have full fuel tanks." Amanda nodded. "I have medical supplies ready for treating injured aliens. The Elthrani are fragile compared to humans, but I can help them if we get there in time." Betty was still listening to the weak distress signal. "Commander, the signal is getting much weaker. I think their power is failing. We might lose contact with them soon." Jake knew he had to make a choice. He could follow orders and stay on patrol while innocent people died, or he could disobey direct orders and risk his career to save lives. The Federation would probably punish him and his crew for going against their commands. But Jake thought about the scared voice in the distress signal. He thought about the peaceful Elthrani farmers who just wanted to grow food and live quiet lives. He thought about what it meant to be human and do the right thing even when it was hard. Jake looked at each member of his crew. "I am going to ask you all to risk everything. If we go to help these people, the Federation might court-martial us. We might lose our careers and spend years in prison. Anyone who wants to leave the bridge now can do it. I will not think less of you." Nobody moved. Lisa smiled. "Sir, we signed up to protect people. That is what we are going to do." Tony nodded. "The Defiance is a tough ship. We can handle whatever is waiting for us." Amanda added, "Those people need medical help. I took an oath to save lives no matter what." Betty looked up from her station. "Commander, the signal just cut out completely. If we are going to help them, we need to go right now." Jake walked back to his command chair and sat down. "Set course for the Zephyr system, maximum jump speed. All crew prepare for emergency action. We are going to save those people." The Defiance turned toward the distant star system and jumped into hyperspace. Behind them, the Federation bureaucrats continued their meetings and debates. Ahead of them waited danger and the chance to do what was right. The humans were coming to help. The Defiance shook as it dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Zephyr system. Jake gripped his chair as the ship's engines powered down from the long jump. Through the main window, he could see 4 planets orbiting a yellow star. But something was very wrong with what he saw. "My God," Amanda whispered from her science station. "Look at those planets." 3 of the 4 worlds looked like they were covered in dark clouds and strange lights. Even from far away, Jake could see that the surfaces were burning. The 4th planet, Elthrani Prime, was sending out a weak emergency signal, but the other 3 planets were completely silent. "Betty, try to contact the planets," Jake ordered. Betty worked at her controls, trying different radio channels. I'm not getting any answers from the first 3 worlds, Commander, but Elthrani Prime is still transmitting. The signal is very weak, though." Lisa was studying the readings on her tactical screen. Her face went pale as she read the numbers. "Sir, I am seeing massive energy readings from all 4 planets. It looks like there was a huge battle here. The orbital defense stations around each planet have been destroyed." Tony looked up from his engineering station. "Commander, I am reading thousands of metal pieces floating in space. Those pieces used to be spaceships. Some of them are really big, like Federation battle cruisers. Jake felt his stomach drop. The Althrani were peaceful farmers who did not even have weapons. If someone had attacked them, the Federation should have sent warships to help. But from what Tony was saying, those warships had been destroyed. "Take us closer to Althrani Prime," Jake said, "but keep our shields up and weapons ready." As the Defiance flew toward the fourth planet, they began to see more details of the destruction. Pieces of broken spaceships floated everywhere. Some of the pieces were so big that the Defiance had to fly around them. Jake could see escape pods, drifting in space, but their life signs were all dead. "Commander, I am getting a weak signal from the planet's surface," Betty reported. "It sounds like someone is trying to talk to us." "Put it on speakers," Jake said. A strange voice filled the bridge. The alien was speaking in the Althrani language, which sounded like musical notes mixed with wind chimes. Betty quickly translated the words, "Please, anyone who can hear this. We are the last survivors on Althrani Prime. Our cities are destroyed. Our people are dead or hiding. The creatures are still hunting us. We have maybe a few hours before they find our last shelter. Please help us if you can." The voice was full of fear and sadness. Jake could hear other voices in the background, crying and calling out in pain. Amanda wiped tears from her eyes as she listened to the desperate plea for help. "Betty, can you answer them?" Jake asked. "Yes, sir. I can translate our words into their language. Tell them this is the human ship, Defiance. We are here to help them. Ask them what happened." Betty spoke into her microphone in the musical Althrani language. A few minutes later, a different voice answered. This one sounded older and more official. "Human ship. This is Prime Minister Veltar of the Althrani people. Thank you for coming. We did not think anyone would answer our call for help." Betty translated the minister's words as he continued speaking. 3 days ago, creatures came out of the deep space between stars. We'd never seen anything like them before. They are huge, like living buildings with teeth and claws. Our weapons could not hurt them. They ate everything they could find. Jake asked Betty to ask about the Federation ships they had seen destroyed in space. "The Federation sent 3 battle groups to help us," Veltar replied. "But the creatures destroyed them in less than 1 day. The Federation ships ran away after that. We have been alone ever since." Lisa was studying the sensor readings more carefully. "Commander, I am picking up movement on the planet's surface. There are thousands of large life forms moving around down there. They are really big, some of them over 100 feet long." Amanda looked at her biological scanners. "I have never seen anything like this before. These creatures are not from any known species in the Federation database. They seem to be some kind of predator that feeds on organic matter." Tony was running scans of the destroyed Federation ships. "Sir, these ships were not just destroyed, they were torn apart. Whatever did this was strong enough to rip through military armor like paper." Jake studied all the information his crew was giving him. An unknown species of giant predators had attacked the peaceful Althrani colonies. The creatures had destroyed Federation battle groups and were now hunting the last survivors on the planet's surface. "Prime Minister Veltar," Jake said through Betty's translation, "how many of your people are still alive?" "Less than 10,000, came the sad reply. "We started with over 50 million people in this system. The creatures have eaten almost everyone. We are hiding in underground bunkers, but they are digging down to find us. Our power is failing and our food is almost gone." Jake looked around at his crew. The Defiance was just one small exploration ship with basic weapons. They were facing thousands of giant alien predators that had already defeated entire Federation fleets. Any sane person would turn around and fly away as fast as possible. But Jake was human, and humans did not leave innocent people to die. "Lisa, what kind of weapons do we have?" Jake asked. "Not much for fighting something this big," Lisa replied honestly. "We have mining lasers, some small missiles, and industrial cutting tools. Our ship was built for exploration, not war. Against creatures this size, our weapons might not do much damage." "Tony, how is our ship holding up?" "The Defiance is tough, Commander. She was built to survive asteroid storms and solar flares. Our hull armor is thick, and our engines are powerful. But I do not know if we can fight thousands of giant monsters. Amanda was studying the sensor data about the creatures. Jake, these things are unlike anything I have ever seen. They appear to be space-borne predators, possibly from outside our galaxy. They are perfectly designed for hunting and killing. Jake thought about his options. He could try to evacuate some of the survivors, but his ship could only hold a few thousand people at most. He could call for help, but the Federation had already tried and failed. He could retreat and report what he found, but by then all the Althrani would be dead, or he could fight. Betty, tell Prime Minister Veltar that we are going to land near their location. We will do everything we can to protect his people. As Betty translated, Jake could hear surprise and hope in the alien minister's voice. Human Commander, you have only one small ship. These creatures destroyed our entire defense fleet. How can you possibly fight them? Jake smiled grimly. Prime Minister, we are humans. We come from a world that tried to kill us every day for millions of years. We learned how to fight things bigger and stronger than us. We never give up and we never leave friends behind. Through the translation, Jake heard something he had not expected. Prime Minister Veltar was laughing. Not happy laughter, but the kind of laughter that comes when someone is so scared and hopeless that they do not know what else to do. Human Commander, your species has a reputation in the galaxy for being crazy and dangerous. I think today we will find out if that reputation is true. Yes, sir, you will. Jake replied. All crew, prepare for surface landing. We are going down there to save those people, no matter what it takes. The Defiance turned toward the planet and began its descent through the atmosphere. Behind them, the wreckage of Federation ships drifted silently in space. Ahead of them waited an enemy that had never been defeated. But the humans were coming. The Defiance shook violently as it flew through the thick clouds above Althrani Prime. Jake could see flashes of strange light and hear loud roaring sounds even through the ship's thick walls. As they broke through the bottom of the clouds, the crew got their first clear look at the planet's surface. What they saw made everyone on the bridge go quiet with shock. The beautiful crystal cities of the Althrani were now broken ruins. Huge creatures moved through the wreckage like living nightmares. Each creature was as big as a building with thick black armor covering their bodies. They had 6 legs that ended in sharp claws, and their heads were full of teeth that could bite through metal. Those are the Ravagers, Amanda said quietly. I have read about them in old Federation records. They were supposed to be extinct for 1,000 years. Jake watched one of the creatures tear apart a building with its claws, searching for any Althrani who might be hiding inside. How many of them are down there? Lisa was counting the creatures on her scanner. I see at least 3,000 of them just in this area. There could be tens of thousands across the whole planet. The creatures looked up as the Defiance flew overhead. They made loud screaming sounds that hurt to hear even through the ship's armor. Some of them started running toward where the ship was heading, moving faster than anything that big should be able to move. Commander, I found the survivor shelter, Betty reported. It is about 5 miles from here, built deep underground, but there are hundreds of those creatures digging down toward it. Jake could see the shelter entrance on his screen. It was a small hole in the ground surrounded by broken crystal buildings. Dozens of the giant Ravagers were clawing at the ground, trying to dig deeper. Every few minutes, small explosions came from underground as the Althrani tried to fight back with their weak weapons. Tony, can we land near the shelter? Jake asked. Tony checked his readings. Yes, sir, but those creatures will attack us the moment we touch down. And Commander, I have been studying their movement patterns. These things are not just hungry animals. They hunt in groups like wolves, and they are smart enough to set traps. Jake thought about what Tony had said. If these creatures were intelligent hunters, then fighting them would be even more dangerous. But it also meant they might have weaknesses that could be exploited. Lisa, I need you to study how these creatures attack. Look for patterns in how they move and fight. Lisa watched the Ravagers through the ship's cameras. After several minutes, she made some interesting discoveries. Commander, they have a pack structure like Earth wolves. I can see larger ones that seem to give orders to the smaller ones. The big ones have different colored armor and they make different sounds. Amanda looked at the biological data from their scanners. Jake, these creatures are not completely from our dimension. They seem to exist partially in normal space and partially in hyperspace. That might be why Federation weapons could not hurt them properly. Jake felt a spark of hope. What do you mean? If they are partially in hyperspace, then normal energy, weapons would pass right through parts of their bodies. But if we could force them completely into normal space, they might become vulnerable to our weapons. Tony was already working on the idea. I could modify our hyperspace engines to create space distortions. It would be very dangerous and might destroy our ship, but it could work. Do it, Jake ordered. How long do you need? Give me 30 minutes, Tony replied. Jake made his decision. We are going to land right next to that shelter. We will use the ship as a fortress and fight them from there. Everyone get ready for ground combat. The crew started preparing for the most dangerous battle of their lives. Lisa programmed their mining lasers to work as weapons. Betty set up communication links with the Althrani survivors. Amanda gathered medical supplies for treating both human and alien injuries. Jake spoke to the whole crew over the ship's communication system. Everyone listen to me. We are about to fight creatures that destroyed entire Federation fleets. The odds are against us, and some of us might not survive this. But there are 10,000 innocent people counting on us. We are the only thing standing between them and death. The crew responded with determination. Navigator Paul Walker prepared emergency escape routes. Communications officer Betty White helped coordinate the defense. Even the junior officers like Ensign Rick Davis and Petty Officer Helen Moore took combat positions. The Defiance landed hard next to the shelter entrance, crushing several smaller Ravagers under its weight. Immediately, dozens of the creatures surrounded the ship and began attacking it with their claws and teeth. The ship's armor was strong, but it would not hold forever under such an assault. Jake opened a communication channel to the Althrani shelter. Prime Minister Veltar, this is Commander Morrison. We have landed next to your shelter. We are going to protect you, but I need your people to stay underground until we clear the area. Through Betty's translation, Veltar's voice was full of amazement and fear. Commander, there are hundreds of those creatures around your ship. How can you possibly fight them all? We are humans, Prime Minister. Fighting impossible odds is what we do best. Jake opened the ship's weapon ports and began firing at the Ravagers surrounding them. The mining lasers cut deep wounds in the creatures, but their thick armor protected them from serious damage. The creatures roared in anger and attacked the ship even harder. Tony, how much longer? Jake called out. 20 more minutes, Commander, but the creatures are damaging our hull. I do not know if we can hold out that long. Lisa was coordinating the ship's weapons from her station. Jake, more creatures are coming. I count over 500 heading toward us from all directions. Through the ship's cameras, Jake could see a terrifying sight. Ravagers were coming from every direction, running and jumping over the crystal ruins. Some of them were climbing on top of buildings to get a better angle to attack the ship. The sound of their roars and claws was deafening. But Jake also noticed something important. Lisa, look at the big ones with different colored armor. They stay behind the smaller ones and make different sounds before each attack. Lisa studied the pattern. You are right. The big ones are giving orders. If we could take out the leaders, the smaller ones might get confused. Then that is what we will do. Target the big ones first. The battle became more intense as Lisa focused their weapons on the larger Ravagers. When they killed one of the leader creatures, the smaller ones around it stopped their organized attacks and became confused. But more leaders kept coming and the ship was taking heavy damage. Hull breach in Section 4, Tony reported. I am sealing it now, but we have lost some systems. Amanda was treating crew members who had been injured by flying metal pieces when the creatures hit the ship. Jake, we have 3 people hurt, but they can still fight. The Ravagers were getting smarter. They began attacking the ship's engines and weapon systems instead of just clawing at the thick armor. Some of them worked together to lift huge pieces of broken buildings and throw them at the ship. 15 more minutes, Tony called out. The hyperspace disruptor is almost ready. Jake watched as more and more Ravagers surrounded them. There were now over 1,000 creatures attacking their ship. The Defiance was strong, but it was not built for this kind of battle. Then something unexpected happened. The largest Ravager Jake had ever seen came walking through the ruins. This creature was twice as big as the others, with golden armor instead of black. When it roared, all the other creatures stopped attacking and listened. That must be their queen, Amanda said. If we can kill her, the others might retreat. But Jake realized they had a bigger problem. The Queen Ravager was looking directly at the shelter entrance where the Althrani were hiding. She had found their real target. The final battle was about to begin. The Queen Ravager stood 3 times taller than the other creatures. Her golden armor shined in the dim light as she walked slowly toward the shelter entrance. Every step she took made the ground shake. The smaller Ravagers moved out of her way and formed a circle around the area like soldiers waiting for orders. Jake watched in horror as the Queen began digging toward the shelter with claws the size of tree trunks. Each swipe of her massive arms tore away tons of rock and crystal. At this rate, she would reach the Althrani survivors in minutes. "Tony, we need that hyperspace disruptor now," Jake shouted over the noise of battle. "5 more minutes, Commander, but if I rush it, the device might explode and destroy our ship." Jake made a desperate decision. "Lisa, take a team and get outside. We need to stop that queen before she reaches the shelter." Lisa looked at him like he was crazy. "Sir, we cannot fight that thing with hand weapons. It is the size of a building." "We do not need to kill it," Jake replied. "We just need to slow it down until Tony finishes the disruptor." Lisa nodded and grabbed her weapon. "Paul, Rick, Helen, you are with me. We are going outside to fight giant monsters." Navigator Paul Walker checked his rifle and smiled grimly. "Well, this is not what I expected when I joined the Space Service." Ensign Rick Davis was young and scared, but he stood up straight. "Yes, sir. Ready to fight." Petty Officer Helen Moore had been a security guard before joining the crew. "Let us go show these creatures what humans can do." The team put on their combat suits and prepared to leave the ship. Jake opened the cargo bay door, and immediately, the sound of roaring Ravagers filled the ship. The creatures outside saw the open door and started running toward it. "Go, go, go," Jake yelled. Lisa and her team ran out of the ship, firing their weapons at any Ravager that came too close. The human weapons were small compared to the giant creatures, but they were accurate and powerful. Each shot found weak spots in the creature's armor and made them roar in pain. The team spread out and used the broken crystal buildings as cover. They had to keep moving because the Ravagers were fast and smart. When one creature attacked from the front, another would try to attack from behind. Lisa found a good position behind a large piece of broken wall and started shooting at the Queen Ravager. Her rifle shots hit the massive creature in the head, but they just bounced off the thick golden armor. The Queen looked down at Lisa and roared so loud that windows broke in nearby buildings. "This is not working," Paul called out as he ducked behind cover. "Our weapons are too small to hurt that thing." But Lisa noticed something important. When her shots hit the Queen, small sparks of electricity jumped across the golden armor. "Betty, are you monitoring this fight?" "Yes, I can see everything from the ship," Betty replied through their radio. "The Queen has some kind of electrical field around her armor. That might be how she controls the other creatures." Inside the ship, Amanda was watching the biological readings. "Lisa is right. The Queen is sending electrical signals to all the other Ravagers. That is how she commands them." Jake understood immediately. "If we can disrupt those signals, the other creatures might get confused." Tony looked up from his work on the hyperspace disruptor. "I can modify our communication array to send out interference signals, but I need someone to get close enough to the Queen to plant a signal amplifier." Outside, the situation was getting worse. More Ravagers were joining the fight, and Lisa's team was running out of ammunition. Rick had been knocked down by a creature's tail, and Helen was helping him get back to cover. The Queen Ravager had dug halfway to the shelter. Jake could hear Prime Minister Veltar calling for help through their radio. "Commander, the creatures have broken through our first defense wall. We have maybe 10 minutes before they reach our main shelter." Jake grabbed a signal amplifier and put on his combat suit. "I am going out there." "Commander, that is suicide," Amanda protested. "Maybe, but it is our only chance." Jake checked his weapon and headed for the door. "Tony, be ready with that disruptor the moment I plant this device." Jake ran out of the ship into the chaos of battle. Ravagers were everywhere, fighting with Lisa's team and trying to dig into the shelter. The air was full of dust and the sound of claws scraping against crystal and metal. Jake had to get to the Queen, but dozens of smaller Ravagers were between him and the massive creature. He used his rifle to clear a path, shooting at any creature that tried to stop him. When his ammunition ran out, he switched to a plasma knife and started cutting his way through. A Ravager jumped at Jake from the side, but Paul Walker shot it with a rocket launcher they had taken from the ship's emergency supplies. The explosion knocked Jake down but also cleared a path toward the Queen. "Go, Commander!" Paul yelled. "We will cover you." Jake ran toward the Queen Ravager as fast as he could. The massive creature saw him coming and tried to step on him with one of her huge feet. Jake rolled to the side just as the foot crashed down where he had been standing. He climbed up on a pile of broken crystal and jumped onto the Queen's back leg. The creature tried to shake him off, but Jake held on and started climbing up her armor. The golden plates were smooth and hard to grip, but Jake had grown up rock climbing on Earth's mountains. The Queen roared and twisted around, trying to grab Jake with her claws, but she was too big to reach her own back easily. Jake climbed higher. Heading for the electrical device he could see glowing on the back of her head. When Jake reached the Queen's neck, he could feel the electrical energy flowing through her armor. It made his hands tingle and his hair stand up. He pulled out the signal amplifier and looked for a place to attach it. The Queen suddenly stood up straight and slammed her back against a broken building, trying to crush Jake. He jumped off just in time and landed hard on a pile of crystal debris. His left arm was badly hurt, but he still had the amplifier. The Queen turned around to face Jake. Her eyes glowed red with anger, and her mouth opened to show rows of teeth the size of swords. She raised one massive claw to strike him down. "Tony, now would be a good time," Jake called into his radio. "Hyperspace disruptor is ready," Tony replied. "But I need you to get that amplifier onto the Queen first." Jake looked up at the massive creature standing over him. There was no way he could climb up again with his injured arm. But then he had an idea. "Rick, bring me one of those rocket launchers," Jake called out. Rick Davis ran over with the launcher, dodging Ravager claws as he moved. "Here, Commander. But this will not hurt something that big." "I am not trying to hurt her," Jake said as he attached the amplifier to the rocket. "I am trying to deliver a package." Jake aimed the rocket launcher at the glowing device on the Queen's head and fired. The rocket flew straight and true, hitting the electrical device and sticking the amplifier right where it needed to be. Immediately, the Queen started shaking and making strange sounds. The electrical signals she was sending to the other Ravagers became confused and mixed up. The smaller creatures stopped their organized attacks and began wandering around randomly. "Now, Tony," Jake yelled. The hyperspace disruptor activated with a sound like thunder. A wave of energy spread out from the Defiance, washing over all the Ravagers in the area. Jake felt his skin tingle as the wave passed through him. The effect on the creatures was immediate and dramatic. Their partially transparent bodies became solid and real. For the first time, they were completely in normal space and vulnerable to regular weapons. "All teams, fire everything we have," Jake ordered. The battle turned in seconds. Weapons that had barely scratched the Ravagers before now cut through their armor like paper. The creatures roared in confusion and pain as they realized they could be hurt. The Queen Ravager tried to retreat, but she was too big and slow. Lisa and her team concentrated their fire on the massive creature, and this time their weapons found their mark. The Queen fell to the ground with a crash that shook the entire area. When the Queen died, something unexpected happened. All the other Ravagers stopped fighting and looked around in confusion. Without their leader's electrical signals to guide them, they did not know what to do. One by one, they began to run away, disappearing into the ruins of the crystal cities. Jake sat down heavily on a piece of broken crystal, holding his injured arm. Around him, his crew was cheering and hugging each other. They had done the impossible. They had defeated the Ravagers and saved the Althrani survivors. But Jake knew their real work was just beginning. 3 hours after the battle ended, Jake sat in the medical bay while Amanda treated his broken arm. Through the small window, he could see Althrani survivors slowly coming out of their underground shelter. The tall, graceful aliens moved carefully through the ruins of their crystal city, hardly believing that the nightmare was finally over. "Hold still," Amanda said as she wrapped his arm in a healing cast. You are lucky this is just broken and not completely torn off. Jumping off a building-sized monster was not your smartest idea. Jake smiled despite the pain. It worked, did it not? Prime Minister Veltar walked into the medical bay, moving slowly on his long, thin legs. The Althrani leader was 7 feet tall with pale blue skin that shifted to warm gold colors when he was happy. Right now, his skin showed deep purple shades that meant he was feeling grateful and amazed. Commander Morrison, Veltar said in his musical voice, I have come to thank you and your crew. You saved the lives of 9,843 of my people. Without your help, we would all be dead. Jake stood up carefully, trying not to move his injured arm. Prime Minister, we were just doing our job. We could not leave innocent people to die. Veltar's skin colors shifted to bright silver, which meant he was confused. Commander, your job was to patrol empty space and report to your Federation superiors. You disobeyed direct orders to come here. You risked your lives and your careers to save people you had never met. This is not normal behavior in the galaxy. Betty walked into the medical bay with a big smile on her face. Commander, I have been talking to the other Althrani survivors. They want to know how we were able to defeat the Ravagers when entire Federation fleets could not. What did you tell them? Jake asked. I told them that humans are different from other species. We do not give up when things look impossible. Over the next few days, more news reached the Zephyr system. Word of the human victory over the Ravagers spread across the galaxy faster than light-speed communications. Every species in the Federation heard the story of how one small human ship had defeated an enemy that had destroyed 3 battle groups. The Federation Council called an emergency session to discuss what had happened. Jake found himself speaking to leaders from dozens of different alien species, all asking the same questions. How had humans succeeded where others had failed? What made the Deathworlders so effective in combat? Commander Zix, the blue bird-like alien who had told Jake to stay on patrol, looked very uncomfortable during the meeting. Commander Morrison, you directly disobeyed Federation orders. There must be consequences for such behavior. But before Jake could respond, Prime Minister Veltar stood up to speak. The Althrani leader's skin was now bright gold with silver stripes, showing that he was feeling determined and proud. Council members, I speak for all the survivors of the Zephyr system. While your committees were holding meetings and your military leaders were calculating acceptable losses, the humans acted. They risked everything to save people they did not even know. If following Federation orders means leaving innocent beings to die, then perhaps those orders are wrong. A murmur went through the council chamber. Many of the alien representatives had never heard anyone criticize Federation procedures so directly. The leader of the Vorthak Military Council stood up next. The Vorthak looked like giant armored lizards and were known as the strongest fighters in the galaxy. The humans succeeded where we failed, the Vorthak general admitted. Their tactics were unusual, but they were effective. We would like to request joint training exercises with human forces. The Nexari science representative, who looked like a floating jellyfish made of light, also spoke up. The human modifications to their hyperspace engines were brilliant. They found a solution to the Ravager problem that none of our scientists had considered. We formally request access to their research data. One by one, species that had once dismissed humans as too violent and primitive began asking for human help. The gentle Zephyrians wanted human protection for their trading routes. The intellectual Crystari requested human military advisors. Even the proud Celestial Empire sent ambassadors to discuss defense agreements. Jake found all the attention overwhelming. I never expected anything like this, he told his crew as they prepared to return to Earth. Tony was working on repairs to the Defiance, but he looked up from his work to smile. Commander, we always knew humans were tough. Now the rest of the galaxy knows it too. Lisa was reading reports from Federation headquarters. Jake, they are promoting you to Admiral. They want you to command a new human defense fleet designed to protect frontier colonies. Amanda was studying the data they had collected about the Ravagers. The Federation Science Council wants to make our research available to all member species. They think the hyperspace disruptor technology could protect against other dimensional predators. But the biggest change came from an unexpected source. The Althrani Planetary Council announced that they were petitioning the Federation to give humans a special new status. They wanted humans to be officially recognized as galactic protectors, with the authority to respond to emergency situations without waiting for committee approval. "We have learned something important," Prime Minister Veltar explained during the announcement. "When gentle species are threatened, when peaceful worlds face destruction, when the impossible must be overcome, there is only one response that works. Call the Deathworlders." Jake stood on the bridge of the rebuilt Defiance 6 months later, looking out at an amazing sight. 12 ships flew in formation around them, each one crewed by different alien species but all trained in human tactics. The Federation had created the first joint defense fleet, with humans leading and other species providing support. The crew of the Defiance had become legends throughout the galaxy. Lisa was now Captain Hart, commanding her own ship in the fleet. Tony had been promoted to chief engineer of the entire defense force. Amanda's research had led to new weapons and medical techniques that saved lives across the galaxy. But they stayed together as a team because they knew their real strength came from working together. Betty's voice came over the ship's communication system. "Admiral Morrison, we are receiving a distress signal from the Andromeda border. There are reports of unknown attackers threatening the Peaceful Worlds Alliance." Jake smiled and sat down in his command chair. "Set course for the Andromeda. Border maximum speed. Signal the fleet to follow us." "Yes, sir," Lisa replied from her ship. "All vessels report ready for action." As the fleet jumped into hyperspace, Jake thought about how much had changed. The galaxy still had its committees and bureaucrats, its endless meetings and careful procedures. But now there was something else. When civilization was threatened, when gentle species faced extinction, when someone needed to step forward and do what was right, there was an answer. The humans would come. The Deathworlders would respond. Other species might be smarter or stronger or more advanced. But humans had something special. They had the courage to act when others hesitated. They had the determination to fight when others gave up. They had the compassion to risk everything for people they had never met. The Federation had learned an important lesson. Sometimes the most primitive species, the ones from the dangerous worlds, the ones everyone else thought were too violent and unpredictable, turned out to be exactly what the galaxy needed. When the call for help went out across the stars, when civilized worlds faced their darkest hour, when hope seemed lost, there would always be one response that could be counted on. The Deathworlders would step forward, and they would never let the innocent fall.